Let's plug the Arduino ramps into our computer here. A little red light will flash when it plugs in. So next, the build guide has us watch a YouTube video about tuning the trim pots to tune the voltage of your stepper motor drivers. It says to tune them to 0.55 volts. In my experience, that works on the Chinese ramps boards. In this SaneSmart kit scenario, they were actually all a bit lower than 0.55 volts, and tuning them up that high made them run like crap. So I just kept them at the voltage that they came at, and they worked beautifully out of the box, at least with the SaneSmart kit. But definitely check the stepper motor voltages and do that part of the guide. So next up, we will download Arduino and flash the board with Marlin here. So download it, install it, make sure we can run it. So while it's downloading, making sure you can run it here, you can also just download the dbot Marlin firmware. So this is actually a really old version of Marlin. You can download it on the Thingiverse page, but it's configured to work perfectly with the dbot out of the box. So it's really nice to just use to test to make sure everything you have works. So we'll download it, unzip it, and we'll open it up in the Arduino IDE. So in Arduino, you can just go File, Open, and select the dbot Marlin firmware folder, and then the Marlin folder, and then in here is a file called marlin.ino. So I'm going to open up marlin.ino, and it's actually like a parent folder kind of structure here, and you can see all of these tabs at the top of this new Arduino window. This is actually the entire Marlin firmware. So you can go and make sure first here that you have the Arduino board connected. Select it from the menu here, the Mega 2560. Make sure everything's set. You can set the port, make sure it connects. You can make sure that it's connected by going Get Board Info, and it should show you the information about your Arduino. So we'll press the right arrow in the upper left hand corner of the screen to compile the Marlin firmware and upload it to the Arduino. So as it's uploading, or when the board is being written to, the red light turns on. When the write or upload is finished, the red light will turn off. That means the firmware has been uploaded to your ramps board. After your firmware is uploaded, we can connect to it with Repetier Host and begin sending G-code commands, as Marlin is a G-code interpreter. So now that we have a ramps Arduino board that can interpret G-code, let's install some software that will allow us to send some G-code. That software is called Repetier Host. While we're downloading things, we'll also grab Slicer Prusa Edition, which is a slicer that will let us take a 3D file and turn it into a set of G-code that our printer can use. So I'll just grab the latest release for my operating system. You can see the operating system name is in the file name here, Win32, Windows 10. There's the .dmg for OS X here, which I am on. So we'll get those both installed, Repetier Host and Slicer Prusa Edition. We'll just configure Repetier Host according to the dbot build guide's screenshots. This will configure everything from how to connect to the printer, to the bed size, what accelerations to use when you're jogging the axes around and homing them using Repetier, that kind of thing. So get all these settings input according to the guide here. If you want, you can also configure Slicer after you've done configuring Repetier Host, but we could also do that just before we're ready to start our first print. So we'll move on to the initial testing here. So this is probably a common error, wiring the hot end assembly harness incorrectly and having the hot end's heatsink fan not run properly. So the dbot guide starts off by letting you know when you turn the power on, make sure you check on that. So let's fire up Repetier Host now that we've got the mains power turned on and we've verified that that hot end heatsink fan is running. Repetier Host will let us connect to this printer using this red button in the top left there. It's also got some important menus on the right hand side, and it outputs to the console below there. So it's got this print panel, which will, when we're connected, you know, it says disconnected at the top right there. We'll be able to send commands to move it X, Y, or Z, home and axis, that kind of thing. So let's get connected here. You'll connect and see some output in the terminal below. Once you're connected, you can verify the temperatures of the printer by pressing the temperature tab at the top here. So I'm just plugged into an extra ramps board I had for demo purposes here, and I don't have any thermistors connected, but since you do, you should see two lines in that black graph there indicating room temperature, one for your heated bed and one for your hot end thermistor reading the temperature. If you see extremely high or crazy negative low values, it could indicate that you have something wrong with your thermistor wiring. If you notice that the temperature is ramping up without you having sent that command, there's probably something wrong with your wiring, or maybe the relay is faulty or something like that. So just turn it off and start checking things. Always keep in mind that Repetier Host has a kill switch in the top right hand corner of the panel, and that you should keep your hand near the power plug so that you can turn off the power if you need. The first thing we'll do is kind of confirm that all of our end stops work as we expect, the printer moves the print head in the direction we expect, all of those things. We'll get started by taking a look at the Z distance here. I like to move the springs on the heated bed about 50% of the way down, then do this part here that the build guide recommends with the video, just moving the bed close to the nozzle. After that, we'll make the fine adjustments for leveling the bed here. So just to make note, you can stop the motor if you can't move the axes at all, and press the stop motor button in Repetier. So we'll take this card and we'll verify that there's a nice tug underneath it, that it's kind of a perfect level. You can see this one's quite a bit higher, so I'll just loosen this bolt up on the left here, bring it closer until I get a nice snug fit under here. Do all four corners and then check the middle. Do them 2 or 3 times just to make sure everywhere is really has this nice tension when you pull underneath it. Next, we'll move our axes around, up, down, left, right, back, forward, and make sure that they move in the direction we think they should. Before you press the home button, like I did here, you want to test your end stops. So to verify that your end stops works, you'll home the axis and you'll press the end stop before it gets there. If the end stop doesn't work and the print head keeps coming, turn the printer off and hit the emergency stop and Repetier Host. So yeah, just use your finger, be ready to kill the power, make sure that your printer homes in the direction it should. Once you've verified that all 3 end stops work the way you think they should, home the printer. The Repetier Host print panel comes with a text box in the top that lets you enter in an arbitrary G-code command. The build guide gives you a command that will make your printer cycle its heating, its heated bed and its hot end various times to give you these KP, KI, and KD values that you'll then enter into the firmware and flash. So you'll run these G-code commands once for the bed, once for the hot end. After that, you'll open up the firmware, find the specified values here, enter in the ones specific to your printer that you've just determined, and then reflash the firmware. And just a quick note, this is in the configuration.h file, as you can see in the tab at the top there. The other fine-tuning step before we try our test print is calibrating the E-steps. I'm not going to go over it in this video because the build guide links to a really good video for calibrating your E-steps. I would just follow that and write that to your printer's firmware as well, just like we did here, and then start your first test print. So we'll calibrate the E-steps, we'll do the PID tune here, and then we're going to start up a test print here in Repetier Host. Okay, so in Repetier Host, you'll want to make sure that you have Slicer configured and using the settings that you have configured in here. The Dbot build guide comes with some really great settings for 1.75mm filament, 0.4mm nozzle, PLA. If that's not what you're using, you're going to have to do some different settings than what the build guide goes over, but I would definitely recommend just sticking with the standard nozzle size, PLA, and everything like that to do your test here. So I've downloaded a test file. It's some jar lid that fits on a mason jar, so I'm just going to select it and open it. This is just a file from Thingiverse. So you can see it's oriented the wrong way. Repetier Host does give you some options for flipping it. I'm sorry, I'm not actually a really active Repetier Host user. I can maybe make a video about how I actually do this. I just want to follow the guide and show you how this goes. So on the left, you have some commands for moving the object around, moving your camera around. On the right, you can do things like translate, scale, or rotate the object here in Repetier Host. So what I'm going to do is rotate this object because I really don't want to print it like this. It just wouldn't work. So I flip it with the flat side down by flipping Y 180 degrees and pressing enter. And now it's underneath the bed, which is no good, but I can hit auto position to move it to the center and with its bottom aligned to the top of the bed. So after that, I'll just press slice with slicer. My settings are good. I've selected the profiles that I set up in Slicer, and now it's generated some G-code. So normally what I would do, or like I used to do, was save the G-code to an SD card and pop it in the LCD and then just print it right from the printer. But the Dbot build stock here, just from here, doesn't have support for an LCD in the version of Marlin that it's using, and so we're just going to run this print for now directly from Repetier Host. So you can see the G-code here is generated, and I'm just going to press the run button at the top, and this will start the print. So I think probably traditionally the first thing you should try to print once you get something dialed in so that it prints something sane is an upgrade for your printer. So in this case, I'm not really printing a jar lid here. I'm printing a fan cover for this power supply down here, since it's pretty loud and it blows air directly on the bottom of the heat bed that you're trying to heat up. And so this is just a little shroud that'll redirect it. This is directly from Thingiverse. I'll leave a link to it in the description here. So yeah, once you get it printing decently, start printing some upgrades. Maybe print yourself an electronics box if you don't have one. So thanks for watching. There'll be more videos in the series. I'm not sure what I'm going to cover next. Maybe you have some ideas, leave them in the comments. If you like this video, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when new videos come out. If there's anything about the Dbot build that confuses you or you're having trouble with, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll make a video that goes into more detail about a part of the process that you're interested in. Or if you're having some specific trouble with some things, just let me know. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you guys all tuned in to the next installment of the Scott Builds Things channel.